Finance and Corporate Affairs, Shri Anurag Singh Thakurji. My warm welcome to Secretary Revenue, Shri Tarun Bajaj, Chairman CBIC, Shri Ajit Kumar. We would take some questions. Over to you, ma'am.
Namaskar, and sorry for a delayed start of the press conference, but that's also because the meeting has just ended. We've had a very detailed, engaging discussion in the GST Council. Yes, it's right. We are meeting after, the council is meeting after quite some time. It last met in October and it was due to meet sometime early February. But I'm sure our media friends will be aware that February was budget. February was also the time when in Parliament I had to clear the finance bill. Post that, immediately, even as the Parliament session was on, Model Code of Conduct was on, elections were happening in 5 states. And post the election, immediately after the new governments were formed, we've had this council. A council meeting in between would have meant that finance ministers from 5 states wouldn't have been present. So we were aware that the sooner the governments are formed, immediately after that, the council meeting would be held. So that was today's meeting's background. Today, several decisions have been taken. I'd broadly touch upon some of the decisions, and via the question answers, I think we'll be able to get into the details of the decisions, if that is suitable for you. Issues of COVID-related equipments was one item in the agenda which had a very detailed discussion. Several issues were within it raised and discussed, and you're aware that ad hoc exemptions were given for many of these COVID-related items. The council has decided to exempt the import of relief items, even if they are purchased, if these are meant for donating to the government or on recommendation of the state authority to any relief agency. Also, this exemption has been extended till 31st August 2021. So far, the IGST exemption was available only when you were importing free of cost. This exemption also has been extended to 31/8/2021. With the rising cases of black fungus, a particular medicine which is required for it called amphotericin B has also been included into the exemption list. The rates of these exemptions provided, and the rates from where they were having been brought down to some in some cases 5%, some cases 12%, and so on, were all very clearly discussed. And what has been suggested by the fitment committee was put before the group of, put before the council. However, there was this protracted discussion on it with varying viewpoints. So I have decided and announced in the council to have a group of ministers quickly formed who will submit their report within 10 days, which is 8th of June, on or before 8th June, so that if there are any further reductions which need to be done, will be done. In the sense, the rates will be decided by them. So in a way, the exemptions that we had been given, but any new rates will now be decided by them. By the GOM, which will get constituted, I suppose, by tomorrow. There were other GST issues which were also discussed. Some clarificatory agenda have also been added to it. There will be a press release which will be giving you all the details. As always, the duty or responsibility of the council's administration, the secretariat of the council, is to draw the attention of the GST Council on the inversion related matters. You're very familiar that we have raised it once before, twice before. Particular items were also shown as those in which we have problems about inversion, which results in revenue not being generated as much as the refunds being given. So that was raised even today with two examples put forward of textiles and footwear. Like last year, and rightly, it was felt by the council that this is not the appropriate time to go for the correction in the inversion duty. So that remains where it is. I think one of the biggest decisions of today is on the reduction of compliance burden of small taxpayers and also some medium-sized taxpayers. Late fee amnesty related matters have also been decided upon. So in order to provide relief to the small taxpayers, an amnesty scheme has been recommended for reducing the late fee payable in these cases. So a large number of taxpayers will benefit from it because our rough assessment is about 89% of the GST paying or 89% of the GST taxpayers constitute small taxpayers. So taxpayers can now file their pending returns and avail the benefit of this amnesty scheme with reduced late fees. Late fees have also been rationalized so that it's not too high for some and too low, and also the issue of providing a long-term relief. So the rationalized late fee and the decision to reduce maximum amount of late fee for small taxpayers will come into effect for the future tax periods. So this will provide a long-term relief to smaller taxpayers. I'm flagging all the decisions. We'll get into the details a bit later. Annual return filing has also been simplified. I'll give you the details a bit later. You'll know that the Council has recommended to amend the CGST Act to allow for self-certification of reconciliation statements instead of getting it certified by chartered accountants. You know, this is a decision of 2020 of the GST Council, and that has also become a part of the Finance Act of this year. Then the annual return filing will continue to be optional for financial year 2020-21 for small taxpayers having turnover less than 2 crores, while reconciliation statements for the year 2020-21 will be furnished only by those taxpayers whose turnover is 5 crore or more. Then there was a discussion about the quarterly return filing and quarterly payment, the QRQP. There's a bit of a discussion on it. The modalities of the scheme have also got to be worked out, so the law committee will be looking into it. Almost near the end of the day's discussion was this discussion on the compensation cess. The same formula as is of last year will be adopted this year also. So a rough estimate that the center will have to borrow about 1.58 lakh crores and pass it on to the states on a back-to-back arrangement like we did last year. But more importantly, on the compensation cess-related matters, we are in the last of the 5 years of the 14% compensation, which is protected revenue-based compensation discussion. Even from last year, there's been worry if there will be an opportunity to extend it beyond July 22. So I've assured the members that there will be a special session only to discuss that one agenda of how compensation cess will be collected, how long will it be collected, how much will be collected beyond July 22. So there will be a special session, and I've assured the members that we'll call that as early as possible. So these are broad contours, but of course, we can get into the details once the question answers session is started off.
Thank you, ma'am. Number 18.
Ma'am, just wanted to know from you, why was there a lack of consensus on this important issue about COVID-related? Because this entire country, as you are well aware, is already suffering from a second surge. Didn't the GST Council understand the importance of giving relief to the common man? And if this group of ministers is constituted, will it have to go back to a GST Council, or it will be a decision of the GM will be binding on the GST Council?
I'm happy you mentioned, will it benefit the common man? Exactly on that was the discussion. Because it's one thing to rush to say, do this, it will benefit the common man. But when you were technical committee, the fitness committee, the fitment committee, the law committee, go into the details, you realize that that could have collateral impact on many others. I'm not talking about the revenue generation aspect, but how many other items will get included in it, as a result of which, how are you going to implement it? And such questions. And will actually these benefits, because they are going to manufacturers or intermediaries who are bringing it from somewhere, the local manufacturer, will actually these benefits eventually be passed over to the end user, the patient, the citizen? On that, there were differing views. And therefore, I've suggested that a GOM go into the details and then take a call. I would underline the fact that it is not as if there was one segment which said, oh, on humanitarian consideration, you have to do it. And another segment said, we don't care for the humanitarian segment. No. As a council, we are responsible to see how actually it will reach the end user, which is the common man of the country. So on that, there were substantial points which highlighted this argument as much as that argument. And therefore, we have to go into the details. The GOM will be coming back and we will probably discuss among ourselves and take a call on how to immediately take a call, final call on it.
And number 22.
Good evening, ma'am. Sapna here from CNBC TV 18. You just clarified on the rate issue, but just wanted to understand very broadly, if possible. A couple of items you've already agreed, the council has already agreed to reduce the rates from 12% to 5%, ma'am. That's one. I suppose the issue remains in terms of drugs, COVID-related drugs, and the COVID vaccine, which are, I think, currently at 5%, ma'am. Kindly correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am. So on this matter, once the GOM gives its recommendations on 8 June, will the council also meet again? And also, why couldn't a quicker decision be taken today, ma'am? Is it really a very complex issue? Because as questions are being raised in terms of the consumer impact, ma'am. That's one, ma'am. Second, you have clarified on compensation that, some numbers which you have worked out is something that you will be again giving to the states on the same arrangement as last year. Is there a finality on that, ma'am? And last but not the least, ma'am, this is a time when the pandemic has hit everybody very badly. Any comments you'd like to make on the state of the economy, ma'am? Your take on that. There's
Any
already a talk
comments
that
on
you're
what?
coming out with a second package also, relief measure. Sorry, just slightly digressing.
Any comments on what?
State of the economy, ma'am. There is a lot of talk that government is already looking at the second relief package, most likely. Your comments on that. Thank you.
Tarun, do you want to explain about the rates and other things? And in any case, the GOM is the one which has to come back now.
I will just take two examples that were discussed in the committee meeting in greater detail. So, for example, the COVID vaccine. So the COVID vaccine is being purchased by the center and the states. And the GST that is coming and that is being paid by the center and the states is also coming back to the center and states. And it was shown that even if we calculate, it is almost the same amount which is coming back to the center and the states of what they are paying. So in a sense, a tinkering a rate will not affect because the center and the states are actually providing vaccine free of cost to all the people who are coming to the government hospitals, whether in the state or the center. Now, a question arose whether there are private hospitals also who are giving vaccine. So if you give the benefit of this, if you reduce the GST, the benefit will also go to the private hospitals. But will the benefit actually go to the patient, to the person is a moot question. Because even in Delhi, I'm sure all of you would know that different hospitals are perhaps charging different amounts for vaccine. So whether the benefit will go to the intermediary or whether the benefit will go to the end patient was a question that was raised. And it was said that what is it this benefit that we are giving for? We want the people, the general people to be benefited. So this was something that was debated. Number two, a similar simile I'll give you. For example, ventilators, if you take as an example. So ventilators are bought by whom? I and you at our homes don't buy a ventilator. Maybe one or two rich people, if they are setting up an ICU at their home, they would be buying a ventilator. The ventilators are again bought by the hospitals. So if they are bought by the government hospitals, whether they are center or state, the center of the state pays the GST, the center of the state gets back the GST. If the ventilators are purchased by the private hospitals will pay. But if you give a relief there, will that relief translate into the charges that are being charged from the patients or not? So what is it that we are trying to do by doing this? So these were the basic questions that were raised. The fitment committee and the law committees had actually gone into it, but the council in its wisdom thought that the ministers also wanted to go and do a little deeper dive into this before they come to a decision in terms of whether the rate should be X, Y, Z. So this is the two examples that I wanted to explain how the discussion took place.
Number 9.
The compensation. On the compensation, what we have given to the council is that if we take the same methodology and formula that we had adopted the last time, if we adopt the same formula, the gap is coming to about 1,58,000 at a macro level. When we calculate at the state level, there may be a difference of 1,000 or 2,000 crores here or there. Now, this is the gap that is coming. But unlike the last year, when there was a complete lockdown and the economy really suffered, this time the economy is not suffering as much. It is suffering, but it is not suffering as much. So last year, there has been a greater deficit than what the back-to-back borrowing has happened. So a case was made out that this year, perhaps, even if we are able to collect 1,10,000 crores on an average per month, our deficit would be 1,50,000, while we will do a back-to-back borrowing of 1,58,000, which would mean that we have compensated another 8 or 10,000 to the states for the previous year's shortfall. And the way things were moving, and I think today's council has also given us a feel that they are ready to take decisions which would, after the COVID has passed. If that happens and we are able to collect on an average even 1,15,000 crores per month over the 12-month period, then this deficit actually comes to 1,25,000. And if we borrow 1,58,000, this will compensate for the last year by another 33,000. Having said that, the council has now decided that this presentation was made. So now we will move to my colleagues, like my colleagues last time moved to me, to ask them whether they could borrow this amount and also initiate discussions with RBI. And Department of Expenditure would be writing to the states on what their individual amount is and taking their consent like it happened the last time.
261. Please. 261, please go ahead.
Ma'am, if you permit me, my question is outside GST Council. It is completely up to you to take it, because there is a lot of debate on the utilization of vaccination budget. You sanctioned 35,000 crore rupees, that grant was sanctioned. And as per the April order, the combined order given to SSI and Bharat Biotech, the amount utilized is 2520 crore rupees. That is just 7.2% of the total sanctioned budget. Some people say it should have been front loaded. So could you please give the data, how much budget has been utilized, which has already been sanctioned, and what is your plan to scale it up?
Well, first of all, even as I announced that 4,500 odd crores being paid to the two vaccine manufacturers, it was towards as an advance payment for the supplies till end of July. So I think this was also explained that the bulk stock that they had with them was given, and that is what was used from January 16th, so that the vaccination of the frontline warriors was taken care of smoothly. And subsequently, we have now paid up the advance. We are getting the supplies from the two of them. And those are anyway being given to the states only. Center doesn't actually go about vaccination. It is done through the hospitals in the states. So, and now I think yesterday or day before, when Dr. V.K. Paul from the Niti Aayog has come up with a very elaborate detailing of what is happening in the vaccination. We have allowed Sputnik to come. Sputnik ready to use is also getting imported. And the country has opened itself up for all those, whether it is Japanese or European Union or US approved vaccines or anything which is certified by such authorities to come and manufacture in India for India and for the world. So we are constantly engaging with a lot of these suppliers and also manufacturers of vaccine, like the way negotiations are being held with Pfizer. So these are ways in which vaccine is being obtained. In the coming months, the supply will also be far more than what it is now.
Number 37.
Naresh, behalf of Win News. Can I raise the question in Tamil, ma'am? தடுப்பூசிகள் வணிக ரீதியான இறக்குமதிக்கு 5%, ஆக்சிஜன் செறிவூட்டிகளுக்கு 12% ஜிஎஸ்டி வரி விதிக்கப்படுகிறது. இதன் மீதான ஜிஎஸ்டி வரியை குறைக்க முடியாது என ஏற்கனவே சொல்லியிருக்கீங்க நீங்க. அந்த வகையில் பார்க்கும்போது நாடு தழுவிய ஊரடங்கால மக்களும் சரி, மாநில அரசுகளும் சரி, பல்வேறு வகையில் நிதி நெருக்கடியில் சிக்கியிருக்கிறார்கள். அந்த வகையில் தமிழக அரசுக்கு வழங்க வேண்டிய 4321 கோடி ரூபாய் நிலுவை தொகையை மத்திய அரசு உடனடியாக வழங்கப்பட வேண்டும் என்ற பட்சத்தில் தற்போதைய சூழ்நிலையில் உதவிகரமாக இருக்கும் என்று தமிழக அரசு கேட்டுக்கொண்டிருக்கிறது. இந்த கோரிக்கைக்கு தங்களின் பதில்?
பலவிதமான விஷயங்களை உங்களோட ஒரே கேள்வியில போட்டிருக்கீங்க. இந்த 4300 சொச்சம் ஏதோ நீங்க சொல்றது எங்க இருந்து வந்துச்சுன்னு எனக்கு தெரியல. அதோட விவரம் நான் நீங்க மாநில அரசு மூலமா வரக்கூடிய லெட்டர்ல வந்துச்சுன்னா அதை பார்த்துட்டு பேசலாம். தடுப்பூசிகள் மத்திய அரசால வழங்கப்படுறது மாநிலங்களுக்கு தான் போகுது. அது இலவசமா தான் போகுது. மாநில அரசுக்கு போறது, இலவசமா போறது முதல்ல 60 வயசுக்கு மேல இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கு கொடுக்க. இதை தவிர, அதாவது மொத்த உற்பத்தி 100 அப்படின்னு எடுத்துக்கிட்டோம்னா 50 மத்திய அரசு வாங்கிக்கிட்டு தான் செலவில் தான் வாங்கிக்கிட்டு மாநில அரசுகளுக்கு அது இலவசமா வழங்குறாங்க. 100 இதுல போயிடுச்சுன்னா மீதி 50ல 25% மாநில அரசுகள் அவங்கவுங்க செலவுல வாங்கிக்கலாம். அதை 18ல இருந்து 44 வயசுக்குள்ள இருக்கிறவங்களுக்கு கொடுத்துக்கலாம். இந்த 25 இதுக்கு போயிடுச்சுன்னா மீதி 25 தனியார் ஹாஸ்பிட்டல்களுக்கு அவங்களுக்கு இந்த 2 கம்பெனிகள் மூலமா சப்ளை பண்ணிக்கலாம். அவங்க என்ன விலைக்கு அதை போட்டுவாங்களோ தனியார் நிறுவனங்கள் கொடுத்துக்கலாம். இதுதான் அந்த திட்டத்தோட அடிப்படை. 50, 25, 25. இந்த 50 மத்திய அரசு வாங்குறத இலவசமா தான் நாங்க கொடுக்குறோம். அது அரசு மருத்துவமனை மூலமா உபயோகிச்சுக்கலாம். அதனால இப்பவும் அந்த 50% இலவசமாக அந்தந்த மாநிலங்களுக்கு அந்தந்த ஒரு ஃபார்முலேஷன் இருக்கு. அவங்க கிட்ட ஒரு அட்டவணைக்கு ஆதாரமா வச்சுக்கிட்டு கொடுக்குறாங்க. எந்தெந்த மாநிலங்களுக்கு எவ்வளவு கொடுக்கணும்னு அந்த ரீதியா போயிட்டு தான் இருக்கு. இப்பவும் போயிட்டு தான் இருக்கு. நாங்க எந்த விதத்திலையும் எங்களோட இதை குறைக்கல. நாங்க கொடுக்க வேண்டிய 50% குறைக்கல.
Ma'am, I've got an online question.
அதான் நான் முதலே சொன்னேன். அந்த 4000 சொச்சம் நீங்க சொல்றது நிலுவைன்னா எந்த கணக்குல நிலுவைன்றத புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு நான் பதில் கொடுக்கணும். நான் அந்த விஷயம் நீங்க எந்த கணக்குல சொல்றீங்கன்றது தெரியாம நான் பதில் கொடுத்தா சரியா இருக்காது.
Ma'am, I've got an online question from Shishir Sinha of Hindu Business Line. He has asked, will the ad hoc exemption for COVID relief materials from IGST be available to any entity and not just the state government approved agencies?
The ad hoc exemption, which is already available, for which the notification was issued on the 3rd of May, that has now been extended to 31st of August 2021. Under this, for various items related to oxygen, the exemption is available to items which are procured free and distributed free by the state agencies. So the state actually identifies them and gives them gives to the customs the names. Apart from this, the other decision, major decision that has been taken today based on the various suggestions that had been received was that in case somebody wants to actually purchase these things from abroad and distribute them free within the country, so that exemption has also been provided to both the state and the center, and again to the same agencies which the state would certify. So if there's an NGO, hospital, or an NGO that is ready to do that and the state says give it to them, so it will happen. अगर आपको स्टेट सर्टिफाई करती है, अगर वो 1 लाख की इक्विपमेंट आप मंगवा के फ्री में लोगों को बांटते हैं और स्टेट कहती है कि आप बांटेंगे, तो आपको मिल जाएगा। अपने लिए कुछ आइटम्स पे जो रिलैक्सेशन किया है वो अवेलेबल है, लेकिन आप क्या आइटम मंगवाना चाहते हैं उस पर निर्भर करेगा। सब चीजों को 31 अगस्त तक बढ़ा दिया।
Number 9.
How do we see this decision vis-a-vis the direction of the Delhi High Court?
Using the two issues, what I'm talking is the notification that was issued on 3rd of May that contains 18 or 19 items. Am I right? And while you are talking is a different case, which is the oxygen concentrators. Yeah. Okay, if you really want to know, and one of my jobs is also to educate now. So let me explain to you. So it is there, it is very clearly there. The High Court has ordered that if it is received as a gift, I think there'll be no tax. While the notification has been set aside, which was issued by us, which has resulted that if you buy from outside and bring it yourself, your tax would be 28%, which had actually been brought down to 12%. So inadvertently, what has happened is that because of this confusion, that tax has become 28%, but that will be taken care of by the GUM. So we have brought it to the notice of the council. A certain recommendation was given, but the council said, let the GUM go into this. But right now, the High Court judgment is applicable. So it is 0.
Number 9. Yes.
So what is your question? You know what happens is that this has been calculated at a macro level. Now we'll also do the calculation statewise. So there may be some small difference, but that's not very relevant. It might be a difference of say 500 crores, 1000 crores overall. It'll be around this figure only. So I have told you the process that we will follow. We will talk to the Reserve Bank of India, Department of Economic Affairs and Department of Expenditure. Department of Expenditure and DA, once they will move to the states, ask the states. Once the states say yes, like it moved last year. So last year we had moved a little later. This time we are moving much earlier. So I don't see any cause of concern here, except that DA and RBI will have to work together to borrow this amount on a back-to-back arrangement.
This is for the GST compensation fund. This is only for the compensation fund.
Yeah.
Quick one to Mukesh's question, sir. Very constant, you had replied earlier that, in case your collections are better,
Very sorry. So just one important clarification. So you had answered on the compensation matter that, if the revenue collections are better, then obviously you tend to, you will need to borrow lower, sir. However, in case you borrow this 1.58 lakh odd crore, sir, then you also mentioned that you will have some additionality around 30 to 30 odd thousand crores to pay for last year. Sir, I've not understood that, sir.
If you recall, the discussions that happened for the last year were that the 1,10,000 crores was borrowed, but the actual collection that has happened of the GST are lower than what were estimated, so the gap is a little more. So this will compensate for that gap, which is an unmet gap, which, if you recall, was decided at the time of the discussions that if there is any unmet gap, it will be compensated from July 22 onwards, when there'll no longer be cess payable to the states. So whatever money will be collected from 22, 23 onwards will be used to pay the unmet GST compensation. So what I was telling you was that in case we are able to collect 1,15,000, from that also we will be able to pay 35,000 in this very year, and a very small amount would be left to be compensated in the next year out of the GST compensation.
Ma'am, this is Manish Kumar Jha from Business World. This is on the micro side, basically. When we talk about government giving support in time of pandemic, it just comes below 1% of the total GDP. Is often argued and compared with emerging economy for other countries, it is much, much higher. You have been very prudish on this fiscal target part, basically. Do you see the uptake and increasing the percentage of GDP in terms of giving support, cumulative support to the industry during the pandemic, which is more severe now in terms of overall estimate we're talking about? Thank you.
Well, last year, when there was a complete lockdown, the impact and the assessment of the various sectors after due consultations, we assessed it for what it was sometime in August, which extended till October, so we kept announcing a lot of things. The budget has been announced only on 1st February. We are in May. We have the entire year to go. The second wave has come. There's not a complete lockdown, but yet states have had lockdown. So we are getting inputs. We need to take a call. We need to understand where the impact is, how much it is, and so on. So that process of consulting, the states consulting, industry is going on. We have not made any final call on it.
मैम, सरकार ने आज अनाउंस करा है कि हम दिसंबर तक वैक्सीन लगा लेंगे पूरे देश में, और लोग अपोजिशन ने बोला है कि 3 साल लग जाएंगे, 2 साल लग जाएंगे वैक्सीन लगाने में। इसका रोड मैप क्या है कि दिसंबर तक जो है वैक्सीन लग जाएगी पूरे देश को?
नहीं, वैक्सीन के विषय में डॉक्टर पॉल जो डॉक्टर हैं वो खुद इस विषय में नेगोशिएशंस में बैठते हैं, प्लानिंग करते हैं, और वैक्सीन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में डिसीजन लेने के समय बैठ जाते हैं। वो कल पूरे विस्तार से बोल दें कि हमारा ऑलरेडी उत्पादन हो रही है, उनका कैपेसिटी बढ़ाने के लिए बहुत सारे एफर्ट हो रही है। एडिशनल कैपेसिटीज में उनका वैक्सीन का प्रोडक्शन का भी बहुत प्रयत्न चल रही है। इसके अलावा रशिया से स्पुतनिक आ रही है, उसका 6 सेंटर्स में डॉक्टर रेड्डीज लैब के द्वारा कोऑर्डिनेट करते हुए उनका प्रोडक्शन भी बढ़ाने के लिए हर कदम उठा रहे हैं सरकार। स्पुतनिक इज ऑल्सो कमिंग रेडी टू यूज इन टू दिस कंट्री। इन सब का मतलब क्या है कि हमारे देश का उत्पादन बढ़ाने के लिए प्रयत्न, कॉन्क्रीट स्टेप्स जो आपको मैं बोल रही हूँ वो सब हम उठा रहे हैं। Other than that, we are also importing ready-to-use vaccines. Negotiations are going on with other vaccine production people. So there's a clear indication that you will have more and more vaccines coming into the country, and therefore we can have maximum vulnerable population covered by the vaccines. वही है इसका सारांश।
I thought the GST meeting won't become political, but as we speak, your counterparts in the states, especially opposition rule states, are now saying there's a lack of compassion from the union government. It's really about the optics now, about the fact that about the numbers. So usually this is not the way GST is run, but do you want to give a response to the fact that they're saying that there is no compassion from the union government?
No, what is not the way in which the GST is run? When you say that, what do you mean? I'm not able to understand. We've already told you that there will be a GOM talking about it. Didn't I tell you that? So it's all right. The GOM will have to take a call, and we very clearly said by the 8th of June, they will have to come. Now, if you're asking me to respond to the comments which the honorable members who are finance ministers, which are being made outside, it will not be appropriate, because I think the spirit with which the GST Council took place today, I would think that the decision that there will be a GOM to decide itself tells you the complexity which has to be taken on board before taking a final call. If you are very quick to say, oh my God, central government has no compassion, others have it, well, I don't want to argue with anybody. Ultimately, all of us are equally responsible to our citizens' welfare, to our citizens' well-being at a time of pandemic, also to ensure that states do get their dues, both in terms of their devolution, in terms of taxation, and also the vaccine, like one other colleague of yours asked as to how much of vaccines are going to the states. The center is buying it and sending it. And I humbly submit that the interest of all the states and the center, I would humbly submit, and which is what I heard in the council, is towards making sure that Indians get the vaccines in time and states get the due share of their revenue in time. So there is a balance to be maintained, and that's what was discussed. So if you're asking me, this is not how, I mean, I don't know how, last year you heard us talk about the compensation cess, not over once, but 2-3 meetings continuously, meetings which ran till late night. Even then you asked me this, Sunil Prabhu, that the consensus attitude of the council is now not working out. No, you saw it was consensus last year. It shall be consensus even this year. But if you expect that nobody should be talking about their feelings, I don't want to get into argument on that.
Thank you, ma'am. With your permission, thank you. We'll close the press conference now.